Hello there, good evening, and welcome to your Sunday show for Easter Sunday, the 5th of April here at Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Scott Patterson. If you're joining us across any of our social media channels, we are very grateful. You can get us across Twitter and Facebook. You're also probably watching on our main YouTube channel at the minute as well, so we're grateful for your time tonight. Joining me to discuss a reasonably exciting weekend in Rangers world is Dougie Kinnear. Hi Dougie, how are you?
Good evening. I am very well. I was just saying before we came on, it's been a good day, a good long weekend. I hope everyone's having a lovely Easter, enjoying the long weekend, and what is very changeable weather throughout the country right now.
You're absolutely right. So I said just before we started, it was like where I am in Falkirk. It was absolutely 4 seasons in one day today. We had snow, we had beautiful sunshine at one point, and pissing rain for pretty much the rest of the afternoon, to be honest.
We had snow?
Just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Yeah, quite a mad day as far as weather-wise is concerned. So listen, on you go, Duke, sorry.
No, I was going to say, it didn't take Bob long in the chat to start digging the new guy in the chat as well.
I know. Yeah.
For everyone watching, it's Scott and I this week because our fellow podcasters are currently in sunnier climates enjoying the Easter week.
Yeah, they don't need to worry about piss and rain or snow, sleet, nothing like that.
He's probably sitting there with a beer in his hand right now. I've got a can of Iron Brew.
Goodness me. So listen, before we get on to it tonight, I do want to say a big thank you to our sponsors and those that support us for the duration of the season. They are, of course, Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Black Rooster, Art of Gold, and Candid. I should also say a big thank you to our friends across the RYDC who are supporting us this year as well, and we're lucky enough to be involved in and around with those guys. Lots to discuss tonight. We talk about a surprising starting 11, I think, yesterday for the supporters as they were arriving at Ibrox. We'll do a little bit about the involvement of Suter. I'm keen to speak about the dynamic almost in the centre of the pitch with Tochi and Nico. Is that working? Not sure. We'll do a bit about Skov Olsen. I spoke a bit about Skov Olsen last night on BBC Sports Sound, so I'll say a little bit more on that. We'll do a bit on Asgard playing as the second striker, and of course we did see Naderi as the main focal point as the number 9 effectively yesterday for the first time since he arrived. So it'll be interesting to see everyone's thoughts on that. We'll do a little bit about momentum as the show progresses, and of course it's another weekend where none of the current top 3 have all won. So no victory for Hearts this weekend. And I don't think we've went through a week this season, incredibly, getting to the beginning of April, when the top 3 have all won, which is mad smoke. No, my chair isn't knackered, I'm just standing. I thank you for paying attention. Dougie, going into the game yesterday, and I know from Big Amarit's sort of coupon and the post-match thing, he was really surprised and a bit concerned as to how the team lined up. So, for memory, Butland, Sterling, Suter, Giga, Magoma, who of course replaced Romans, Tochi, Nico, Skov Olsen, Mikey Moore, Asgard, and Naderi as your focal point up front. What was your thought seeing the 11, buddy?
Do you know, I don't think I could ever predict a Rangers starting 11 anyway, but 3 changes to the back 4 is never great. I wouldn't have been able to predict it anyway, but I think for us it's the impact of the international break, isn't it? You never know how the guys are going to return. Other clubs like Hearts don't have the same challenges that we do. We've got a number of players who are featuring for their countries, and that's why Fernandez didn't start. It's why Shamiti didn't start. Both had came back with knocks from international duty. So you can't predict that unless Danny Rule suggests it, as he did with a key player, which turned out to be Romans, and hopefully that that's not a long one. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. The cup weekend might help us in terms of we've got the free weekend. That might give us another extra week to get Romans back so that he can play the necessary part when we get to the business end post-split fixtures. So I couldn't have predicted it. Where was the shock? So obviously back 4 significant changes. Shamiti out. The big change, obviously, not having the 2 big guys up front. I know you mentioned there about Asgard. Asgard kind of floated between being up there in the D-Ray, being a wee bit deeper. I'm sure, as most people that listen and have heard me throughout the show this season will know, I'm a fan of Asgard. I think there's a right good player in Asgard. I think he's not shown it in a Rangers jersey yet. I think that was his best performance. But I firmly believe there's more to come with Asgard. And I think one of my mates, Costa, is convinced that Asgard's going to be a second season player for us. And I think he's got all the potential to do so. So you've got the back line, forward line, midfield. Yeah, the only surprise for me from a midfield kind of perspective is probably Scove Olsen starting, and I'm sure we'll come on to it. Has he earned a start? No. Did he put in a shift that merits starting against Falkirk next week? Absolutely not. So there's places up for grabs right now in this team, and we're going to pick out some individuals shortly. But yeah, you can never predict a Danny Rose starting 11.
Dougie D, one of the things that I instantly got yesterday, the match was obviously, I thought the support were really good yesterday, I have to say. I thought they were really, really good. I don't think there was any debate. Everyone knew what was on the line yesterday. Big opportunity to go top for the first time in a couple of years. And I think, I almost wonder if it was so surprising that the team was so new to a degree. So it wasn't a starting 11 that I think we've seen anything like this season. And at a time where you're kind of thinking, right, we can go top of the league today, you want your recognisable bodies in there. And that's not a slight on any of the guys that played, but I just think that one of the things that we've levelled against Danny Rowe almost this last sort of 3 or 4 months is picking his very best 11. Now, we know now there was, of course, guys carrying knocks when they came back for the international break. But I think you instantly lose sight of that because you think, Jesus Christ, we want to go top of the league here, and you're almost slicing and dicing with this 11 just because your hand's been forced to do it. Do you know what I mean? But one of the things I said in the chat was, I do feel our squad is smart enough, sensible enough, big enough, and good enough to get through that yesterday. The first half was a bit, I don't know, it was quite hard to sort of put your finger on what wasn't going quite right.
Yeah, see in terms of the squad, I agree with you in terms of when that starting 11's mentioned, is named, I'm in the car heading over to the game with my 2 pals, and we were all shocked about it. It's not our full strength 11. We were questioning whether Danny Rowe's overthinking it in terms of bringing out the guys from international duty because they're not 100%, playing the guys who didn't travel. You look at Man City versus Liverpool, and they're playing guys that played international football. So why are we not? But it transpires there's knocks in that there, which I think the manager's having to accommodate. But the one thing that we said in the way over was that team's good enough to beat Dundee United. You look at the players that have came in, and I know we're going to talk about some individuals. So from a positive perspective, you're bringing in Sterling. We know what Sterling's capable of. Yeah. He's a very, very good fullback, and he showed that yesterday. I thought he had a good game. Suter is a Scotland internationalist. We'll come on to him in a wee bit later, but you're bringing in a Scotland internationalist. Magoma was playing for England under 19, so you're talking about a very good young player playing. Scove Olsen is our big January signing. He's a Danish internationalist. Asgard coming in as a Norwegian internationalist. You're talking about bringing in guys that are of a certain level of quality that should be able to come in and beat Dundee United at home. So I wasn't concerned when I seen 11. I was surprised, but a bit like you, I think. What was the time? When did we get our first goal? Was it about the half-hour mark?
It was not far off. In fact, it might have been bang on 30 minutes. The more I think about it, yeah, in the Derry.
See, at that point, it was slightly against them in a play. To be honest, Dundee United did get a wee bit of a grip of the game. They'd found a very favourable long ball to our left back position where they constantly just kept putting it high towards Magoma, and they were hoping to win the high ball or the second ball, and they were getting a bit of joy from it. When we got that goal, it was a huge relief. When we get the second goal, it felt like we could take the hand, we could relax a little bit, and then also the late goal getting into half time was a sucker blow. But for a good bit in the first half, we weren't great, and the atmosphere was a bit tense. But the one thing I'd say about the atmosphere is it responded very, very well to what was happening on the pitch. Yeah. Always said the atmosphere inside Ibrox reacts to what's happening on the pitch, and for a large part of the game, they were reacting to decisions not given by the referee. You think about the the big incident on Sterling when he was going up the right-hand side and he was clean wiped out, and then we went up and 2 seconds later, I think it was Skov Olsen lost the ball, but it should have been brought back, and when it wasn't, the fans responded to it, and I think that the fans were excellent yesterday. The Ibrox was loud. And do you know, I hadn't realised this in the way to the game. That's also our third last home game of the season.
Yep.
We've only got 2 more. And again, without going too far ahead, you know, when you look at it, we've got 2 home games in our last 6 fixtures. Celtic have got 4 in their last 6. Very questionable fixtures from our authority in Scottish football.
The magic computer. Don't even go there. So listen, no, I do want to speak about. So you've covered a couple of bits and pieces there. I did think that you could tell that the players hadn't played a lot of football together. They've obviously went away and played internationally at various sort of junctures. I think Tochi had spoke during the week how it was good to sort of spend a bit of time at the training centre and get himself up to a standard of fitness that he was happy about, which I think was quite good. But as you say, Suter was away, Magoma was away. We knew that Fernandez and Chermiti had came back with very slight niggles. So it was always going to be a bit mismatched based on all of these guys either being ready to go or some not being ready to go, which I think gave us a problem. But that first half hour, I tend to agree with you. I actually felt as the half hour kind of got closer, it looked like we were not beginning to necessarily lose the grip that we, I think, had eventually managed to get in the game. But Dundee United just started to get a bit more of the ball, knock it about a bit better, knock it about a bit smarter. That was a bit of concern. So to go 2 up when we did was great. However, as we know, and I think it's important we don't turn the show into a bashing show, and John Suter could become a sort of a big name on the pod for discussion points tonight, and I get that, and I see bits and pieces jumping in the chat and people being quite I'm trying to think of the correct word. I don't know what the right word is, to be honest with you. He gets the that sort of moment of defending wrong, doesn't he, when he kind of backs off. He's almost on Jack Butland by the time the guy's getting the shot away. And it's not the first time we've seen that almost lack of defensive awareness from John Suter, and that's a concern considering so recently he's been given another extended contract.
His positional play's not been great recently. He's found himself at a position which is allowed space for the opposition team. It's not the first time we've seen it. Me and my brother-in-law had a good conversation at swimming this morning about John Suter, actually. John Suter is what he is, right? John Suter is a siege defender. In certain games, John Suter's going to be the perfect defender. You know, it's why he shows up well for Scotland. You play a deep line where his role is purely to stick his head on the ball or, you know, put his body on the line. John Suter's going to be that guy. Yep. There will be time and a place where John Suter will be needed to do that. Might be Europe. But that's where he excels as a defender. Where his weaknesses lie, and they've been shown in a number of games this season, is when you're playing the high line and the ball's in behind, for example, it's not his game. He's not a defender that you want to see turning around to chase the ball. And there was a few times where he was beaten for pace, and we were fortunate quite a few times. John Suter is not, for me, he shouldn't be in the starting 2 for this season or next season. Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with John Suter being involved in the squad. That's my kind of take on John Suter. Giga and Fernandez have put up a very good partnership throughout the season, and I think Fernandez will be back for Falkirk. I certainly hope he's back for Falkirk. Yeah. If you've got Fernandez and Giga as your back 2, you know, your centre back pairing, I'm quite comfortable, to be honest. And having John Suter on the bench in case he's needed to be called upon, I'm quite comfortable. You might need to address that again in the summer, depending on Fernandez's situation and whether we can make Giga permanent or not. There's a place for Suter in this squad, and I don't want to turn it into an anti-John Suter bashing, but you look at the last, 6 games that John Suter's played, I think it was, yes, I've seen on Twitter, and we've conceded every single game. You look at the last 8, I think it was, under Giga and Fernandez, we've conceded 2 of those. There's a big difference when you see John Suter in that starting 11, and it shouldn't be the case, if I'm honest, Scott, because my gripe yesterday going to the game is John Suter was holding the armband. I've got nothing against John Suter coming into the starting 11 when you've got an injury to your your preferred centre back, i.e. Fernandes yesterday. But when you're seeing a performance like that from the guy holding the armband, it's a bit concerning. I don't know where your head's at, but when Tav's not there, Butland is next in line. But he's a goalie. I don't really like to see the goalie. But there was a couple of moments in the game where, I mean, Beaton had a terrible game, right? There was a couple of moments in the game where the guy that was in Beaton's face was Nico Raskin. See if Nico Raskin's going to do that role, give him the armband. That's my view on it.
Do you know, so on Suter, I heard that a sort of guy at the football yesterday said something that I completely understood, and he actually said that Suter's a better footballer than he is a defender. And I think for the purpose of what he is there for, we need it to be the other way around. And I'm a great believer in sort of defenders having really, really good technical ability. I totally get that. I understand that. But I do think there is a time when you just need your defenders to defend. They just need to be there to defend. And I think you look at Giga's a prime example of that. So I don't think Giga is a particularly excellent footballer, but I think we've seen in the last 2-3 months when he's been developed alongside Fernandes that he's actually a really, really good defender. He can be a good defender. He can be a first choice defender. But that's Rangers not moving forward. Who knows?
I think we spoke about this in the chat as well, Scott. You know, Giga's on loan here. Wolves are about to get relegated. I'd sign Giga. You know, I don't know what fee Wolves would want. They paid 10 million for him or January. I think it was last January, 12 months ago. They paid 10 million. I wouldn't pay 10 million because we shouldn't be paying 10 million pound for a centre back. Yeah. But do you know, see if he's available for a fraction of that, say 5, 6, even up to 8 if it was including add-ons, I'd pay it for Giga. And you know, I've seen a few people in there saying they'd love to keep Fernandes for another 12 months. I'd love to do that, but money talks. We're in a position where we need to be a player trading club. If somebody comes in with a ridiculous bid for Fernandes, let's say 25 million, I'm completely for selling Fernandes for silly money and signing Giga with somebody else and having some pocket change in the pocket. You know, where that's what we're going to have to get a lot smarter at. I'm going to digress massively. We were talking in the car yesterday of when we got the silly bid for Morelos. You know, there was a point where I think it was Leo put in 16 for Morelos and we wanted a wee bit more. At that point, Ivan Toney was playing in League One for Peterborough and available for 8 million. You could have flipped Morelos and brought in Toney. Now, you never know how a replacement's going to be, but if we are going to trust our scouts and trust the process, that's the model. You need to be flipping these guys for big money when the big money comes in and bringing somebody else in for a fraction of the price and keeping it going. But the guy that you bring in needs to be good enough to, let's be honest, win you trophies, because that's what Rangers is all about. Whilst we're here to be a player trading model, we need to make sure that the guys that you're bringing in that are replacing your outgoing guys are still good enough to win the league. Yeah,
100%. The Fernandes scenario isn't too dissimilar to what I think will happen, what did happen with Calvin Bassey.
Definitely. And you see it with Ajax. See with Bassey. Bassey was brilliant in that Europa League run.
Yeah.
I don't want to bash Calvin Bassey too much because I love Calvin Bassey, right? But see if you go back to the beginning of the season, he had a shaky start to the season in the exact same way that Fernandes did. Then he's grown into a jersey exactly same way as Fernandes. See when a guy's at his peak and he's got all the eyes watching him, you know, for Fernandes, he's representing Nigeria, he's scored in his first start for his nation. See if you're getting a selling money bid of 25 million, similar to what we did with Bassey, you've got to take it. And probably like Bassey, it might take him a while to adjust as well. And you might see him not perform as well as what you would expect at his next club. But delighted to see Bassey doing well in the English Premiership, and hopefully when the time comes for Fernandes, he can make us some money as well with an add-on clause.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, I don't disagree. I do want to speak about one of the things that we've spoke about recently is this sort of rigid formation, if you like, that Danny Rule is sticking with sort of back four and then the 2-2-2. Anyone that's watched the podcast in the last week will have heard that referred to the Stoner. And I want to speak a little bit about that because what we have at the minute, clearly, is Raskin and Chukwani, who are sitting as the two ahead of the back four, and ultimately the two that work in the box ahead of the two centre halves. Is that working for you, Diggs?
I'm going to be really unpopular, I think, here with our gaffer.
Never.
He's a big fan of Nico. So I think Chukwani grew into the game yesterday, get man of the match on the ground, I thought, you know, he's a big, strong guy, isn't he? I really like what Chukwueze brings. You know, he's physical, he's athletic, gets about the pitch, good ball carrier, good tackler. I like what he brings, but I think what he needs beside him is somebody who's also going to be good on possession. You know, we know what Nico Raskin's good at right now. Nico Raskin's good at breaking up the plays. He's high intensity, he's in your face. You know, he covers a lot of ground, and in certain games there's a time and a place, particularly games where we're not the team in possession. Nico Raskin, same with Connor Barron, I've just seen somebody as well, right? These guys are really good when you are not dominating possession, where you need to be pressing the ball, winning it back, moving it on. Where they fall down is when you're the team in possession. Nico Raskin gives the ball away far too much for me. Some of his decision making in possession's poor as well. You know, it's almost comical how many times he tries to do a long ball when it's not on, and it gets swept back up again and it comes straight back at us. Nico Raskin's use of the ball is not good enough for me. He'll look very good in certain teams, Belgium, for example, because his job in that team will be that kind of breaker up of play, and then he'll give it on to the ball players who will go and play the rest of football. At Rangers, we don't have that luxury. We don't have as many ball players as Belgium, for example. So Nico Raskin, but like I said about Suter, will suit certain games. But I think beside Chukwueze, I need someone who's a wee bit better in possession. And you know, we've been linked with so many names. Silas Anderson at centre mid, the guy is it Huerto Dal as well.
Right.
Silas Anderson's a bit of a more destroyer type, a bit like what Raskin is. He's a bit more like for like. But I really like the big guy Dal. I think his use of the ball's excellent. And that's what I'd like to see in the summer. I'd like us to get a good World Cup, hopefully out of Raskin with Belgium, sell him for good money. You know, thank him for his services. He's been a good servant for us.
Yeah.
Probably hasn't won as many trophies as I'd want these guys to be earning. But I'd like us to be cashing in at the right time for someone like Nico Raskin, where you can then go out and replace him. But I think his replacement needs to be somebody who's a lot better in possession.
Do you know, one of the things that I think we've seen a lot from Nico Raskin, we've seen it a lot in the last week, and I think a couple of guys have commented in the comments on this, is that he's almost every time he's playing at the minute, he's dropping really, really deep to playing in beside the two centre halves. I just wonder if he does that, if he's comfortable with the two centre halves and their ability to play out. Because if these two guys that are playing behind him have sort of good passing range and don't give him any real cause for concern, he doesn't need to really be concerned about what's going on ahead behind him. He can be concerned with what's going on ahead and how he feeds the front four that are playing ahead of him. So we've seen quite a lot of that recently, and we saw a load of it yesterday, where he was dropping into that space between Suter and Giga to take the ball and try and progress. Nothing overly wrong with it. I really think that Nico Raskin struggled this season purely because of all the nonsense that went on at the start of the year. And I think that's went against him, and he's found it almost a little bit difficult just to get into a routine that he knows he can get to, Dougie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're bang on around the disruption throughout the season with Raskin. I really like Raskin, just to be very clear. You know, some comments there saying Raskin's a top player. He is a top player. I just think he'll suit certain different games. Europe, Raskin, you know, the big games in Europe will be his bread and butter. I think to your point there, my Sonos is kicking in there also once the tune's on. 2 secs, right? I'm going to switch that off because I can hear you laughing through it.
So yeah, one of the things. I'll wait until Dougie comes back.
There's my Soros kicked in there. Right, see on the Nico Raskin, just before we move on. I don't think him dropping in between the centre backs is his game. I really don't. I don't think he's got the passing distribution to drop in. You used to see it quite a lot with John Lundstrom. Lundstrom would often come in between the two defenders, and it would allow your wing backs, your full backs to go up as well. Dare I also say, and again, we'll come on and talk about certain individuals like Mikey Moore not having his best game, but I think one of the big reasons for that is Migoma. Migoma's a really good player, and I'm not concerned about Migoma coming in for a couple of games to replace Romans, but I do think when you bring in someone like that, it disrupts the rest of the team, because Mikey Moore's really good at coming inside. So, you know, Romans goes up the outside, Mikey Moore comes inside, it creates some space. Migoma doesn't go past the halfway line as much. He's not as great at linking up. But I wonder if that's a big factor of when Raskin's coming back deeper, you're hoping your fullbacks are the ones going forward. We had two fullbacks yesterday that are not as strong as that. You know, Tavis are a bit better going forward than Sterling. Migoma's not as he's not on the same level as Romans. So I wonder if that's a big factor as well of why you didn't see the best of Raskin. It's not necessarily about his game; it's about some of the guys around about him not complementing what his strengths are.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Second half, I do want to go back to the game actually. Second half, Rangers obviously go 3-1 up, and it is Askar that scores. But I do want to talk about a couple of changes that were made at half time. So Naderi, who we know now was carrying a bit of a knock. I think he was quite unwell at half time. He goes off, and Big Chermiti comes on. A couple of things that we can say about him as we look at the second half. And Gassama comes on at half time as well. Now, I openly admit we've given JD Gassama an absolute hiding on this show quite a bit recently. I'm sure I seen something yesterday, later in the evening, that it was his 50th game for Rangers, which is bonk. I mean, it just shows you how much football he's played this season. It's his first season at Ibrox. It shows you the amount of times he's played. I thought it looked okay yesterday. The reality is, though, he's coming on to play for Skov Olsen, who I feel I really like, and I'm desperate for him to be a success. But I don't think he was great yesterday. And I actually said, as I said in opening the show, I done a bit with BBC Sports Sound yesterday, and I do genuinely believe that one of Skov Olsen's, or his two main issues, are he's a Danish winger. I completely believe that, because I think when we bring in a Danish winger, you instantly make the obvious comparisons and expect him to be as good as him or have the Lovenkrands moments back and forward. Ain't going to happen. Different kind of player entirely. But there are bits and pieces where you just look at him and say, express yourself, go and do something to get us all on our feet, to make us think that, you know, come August, you'll be worth £9 million. At the minute, Dukes, I don't think we're seeing it.
Oh, Scott, what's happening here? Because we won 4-2 yesterday. We went top of the league.
I know.
We're only a point behind, right? And somebody's criticised me of being too negative in the chat, so apologies, right? But I am going to focus on Skov Olsen for a second here, because anyone who knows me will know that I am a big fan of Skov Olsen. I've wanted us to sign him since Steven Gerrard was manager. And when we did get him over the line, I was buzzing with it. I really thought this was going to be the game-changing signing that we needed to get us over the line with the league.
Yeah,
it's not turned out that way, and I don't know. There's multiple reasons why that might be the case, right? He's came over without playing a lot of football at Wolfsburg. He came off the back of an injury. Czerny was a bit similar in terms of when he came, he hadn't played a lot of football, and it took him a lot of time to get up to speed, right? We don't have time to get up to speed. This is a business end of the season now. We've got a league to go and win. Czerny had a wee bit more grace because he came in pre-season. He could use pre-season, early season games where you can, you know, we're here to win every game, right? But you can not beat your best at the beginning of the season, and nobody's calling for your head the way that people are tonight about guys like John Souttar, right? So you can have that period. Olsen doesn't have time, but I think what's frustrating me, and I think what's frustrating a lot of fans, is you expect a wee bit more from Olsen. I'm maybe not so much in the mould of, because he's from Denmark and a winger. You know, I'm lucky enough to have managed to secure my VIP tickets to go and see Brian Laudrup with George Alberts. That's my favourite ever Rangers player. I can't wait. But I don't look at Skov Olsen and automatically associate Brian Laudrup. I'm identifying him as his own player. But I think Skov Olsen's game is different to what I expected. And that's probably my own admission of, I've seen enough clips of him to get excited.
Yeah.
But I was expecting a ball carrier. And Skov Olsen so far is not a ball carrier. He's somebody that needs to be running into the space. And I don't think that suits him right now. You know, see if you look at the stats for Skov Olsen, I don't have them, but he got another assist yesterday, and he's racking up the assists. So he's contributing in the final third. But for me personally, he's too safe. Every time he gets the ball, he's not looking to do the beating the man and doing something that you need your creative players to do. He's almost passing it on, looking for someone else to do it. And I don't know whether his style is someone who is more team playing, where he passes it, he moves into space, he wants it back, and we're looking for him to be the man that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck. And if you look at Gassama, for example, I've been very critical of Gassama throughout this season. And I think give him credit, right? Because 50 games in your first season as a youngster is very good going. And he's been a good signing for us, Gassama, but you just want a wee bit more. When Gassama came off the bench yesterday, he did exactly what I wanted Scove Olsen to do, and that's just take the ball for a run. And see, when you've got a winger who, you see it so often with Mikey Moore. I know Mikey Moore's very different as a winger, so you need to have that kind of balance. But you need guys who are prepared to take the ball and take a risk, try and beat a man. And Gassama did that for me yesterday, and actually did it to great effect at times. If you look at the Shrimity incident, right, I'm going to talk about Shrimity incident. Gassama created that by just running straight. And that's what I love about guys like Gassama. And we need to see it more from him. I need to see it more from Olsen. But that's my criticism right there of Shrimity. Shrimity pops up with one of the best goals I'll ever see at Ibrox against Celtic. It's an absolute wonder goal. He'll score goals against Hearts and against Celtic in the big games. But see, at that moment, right, what was the score at that point? Was that 2-1?
I think it was 2-1 at that point. Was it 3-1? I can't remember. It was 3-1, I think. I think
3-1.
It was 3-1.
So I think you said it was a sliding doors moment on your sports sound yesterday, and you're bang on, right? Because you get that instant where Shrimity, where he's got a free shot at goal, right, and he hits it. The keeper saves it, right? I think what I'm shouting for with the Shrimity incident is just lift it off the ground a wee bit. Even put your laces through it into the side. He's too safe. He's had 3 shots through the game, I think, where he's played it low and hard. You need to be a wee bit more kind of finesse with that finish. But that moment there could have cost us. And that's my frustration with Shrimity, is that moment right there, he puts that in the net, game's done. Instead, roll the game forward a couple of minutes. Dundee United got up the park and hit the post.
Right.
Great result. I'm buzzing where we are at the moment, exceeding expectations. Danny Rowe took us over 13 points behind Hearts, or whatever it was, and we're in this place where we're only 1 point behind with 6 games to go. We're right in a title race. I'm buzzing for it. But see, if we're genuine title contenders, we need to be taking those chances, and we need to stop fanning about the back, because see that chance there where it hits the post. That could have been anywhere. Your defence is all it sees. Butland's all it sees. We need to take our chances. We need to stop conceding cheap opportunities.
I've said for as long as I've been potting, which is a long time now, and I've said a lot that there are always moments in seasons that you will look back on and think, Christ, can you remember that? Because if it was reversed, you maybe wouldn't be celebrating, or you wouldn't be gutted. And then there was a couple of moments yesterday that I absolutely sort of thought that, the Dundee United chance that hits the post shortly after Chermiti does miss the sitter. And it does make you think, and they are sliding door moments, they really are.
Listen, the Hearts game, Scott, see if you go back to the Hearts game where Shankland obviously has the handball and the build up to the goal, it goes in, they win, flip that round, we're sitting top of the league at this moment in time. You've seen it with the Miovski goal against Aberdeen, the ball touches Barron's hand and it brings it back. It's amazing how the rules are so different. But again, it's that sliding doors moments of, you see one decision going one way or one moment in a game, that small margin there in that Hearts game, we could be sitting top of the league right now.
Yeah.
And let's hope for the next 6 games. And Danny Rowe's absolutely spot on right now. We just focus on ourselves. Next 6 games, go out, do our job. You sit here right now, you say you need six wins. I don't think we'll need 6 wins. I think you'll need 5 because of the cliche of the twists and turns of this season. But if we go out and just keep on focusing on our own game right now, we're winning this league and we're right in it. And I'm delighted to be there, but I need to see us. Falkirk next week's a very tough game. I need to see us be, taking that win just straight into the next game, because that's what champions do. They keep winning. It's not about a big win against Dundee United. We're all high fiving each other. That should be a routine win for us. We should just be taking it into the next game and come 16th of May, 15th of May. all celebrating inside Ibrox.
I do want to speak a little bit about momentum before I get on to that. Special mention to Dougie Sterling, who I thought was excellent yesterday, and Nasser Giga, who continues to cause me to do a complete change on what I thought we had comparison to the first early part of the season. I thought both were excellent yesterday. Really, really, really good, and deserve a lot of credit for it. Also, I was really chuffed for Majowski. I think it's clear the gaffer doesn't fancy him, but he took his goal well and he clearly enjoyed it. So good, fair play to him. Dougie, I want to do a little bit.
I need to say this right, because the guy that sits beside me cracked a brilliant joke when Sterling put the ball in the net. Obviously, Sterling's going to have to change his top, and I was like, what just happened to Sterling there? And wee David that sits beside me is like that. He's got a nosebleed because he's that far up the pitch.
Listen, I thought he played really well yesterday. I really did. And I think I seen something. I think Joshua Barry had put something out in his Twitter feed to say that it's his best period of longevity as far as games are concerned since he arrived. And that's important. I think for guys that play in those two positions, right and left back for Rangers, the regularity of games and the consistency of games is really important. So yeah, really chuffed with him yesterday. I thought he played excellent, and it was good to see Tav come on and get a sort of standard couple of minutes towards the end as well. Dougie, I do want to, I should say one last thing. I thought the second Dundee United goal was a cracker. Really good goal. If you look at it, the way that it was worked, you could argue about our defending. I get that. I understand that. Took it well. Douglas.
See on that, the second goal, we were very naive though. You know, Mikey Moore running into that danger zone, he needs to release it a bit quicker. But see Chukwuani needs to take the player down. You know, Danny Rose spoke a couple of times about being a wee bit kind of playing the dark arts. He should have took him down. And then Suter, I know, don't want to criticise him too much, but Suter's let him have the shot at goal fairly unopposed. It was a poor goal to concede. It was a good goal to score. Poor goal to concede. Do you know one thing I've not said and need to say it is, see our first goal, I need to give Asgard some credit for the first goal, because how bad were our corners, right? So our corners were terrible yesterday. It was almost first man every single time. But he did that. He took the corner, first man, headed it out. It almost pissed Asgard off. He ran and got the ball. He then beat a couple of players, hit the shot from outside the box. It was good to see somebody like that take a wee bit of personal accountability for the mistake, first of all, but actually creating something. So need to call that out as well. But had to jump in there about that second goal for Dundee United.
So listen, I think all in all, it was a cracking Saturday afternoon for us. It was I think it was important that we done our bit. And when I say the support as much as anything else, do you know what I mean? I've said on this podcast before that Ibrox has a capability when it's going and it's moving at the right time. It has the ability to suit games in to Rangers' favour. The fans, the four stands, has that ability, and I think we're going to need that over the next two home games that we're not going to come, whenever they're going to come. But Dougie, I want to do a little bit about momentum now, because we know that we know how the results have went today, with Hearts dropping points at Livingston and Dundee not winning. I wonder how you think momentum lies now, because we're very aware. And listen, this is a title race, guys. This is the way it's going to be. Do you know what I mean? We want to be in and around it. We want to have the opportunity to win the league, but everyone wants that. And the Hearts guys will fancy that. The Celtic guys will fancy it at this minute, considering there's only 3 points to separate third to first. Momentum, Dougie, where's it lying with you at the minute?
Well, I think I need to say, we need to keep taking every challenge as it comes, right? So yesterday we had the opportunity to play first, which was a big opportunity to put the points on the table, put the pressure on Hearts and Celtic today. Hearts obviously dropping points. Next week is completely different, because, we're the Sunday 12 o'clock kickoff game. We could be sitting third next weekend. And that's the point about momentum is every team's going to be feeling like they're chasing something. Hearts are sitting top of the league. They'll be sitting there thinking we need to keep being top of the league, because they've dominated the league for most of the season. They won't want to give it up. Celtic will smell blood as well, the fact that they think, we can keep grinding out the results. So every club will be feeling like they've got that kind of siege mentality right now of going for it. But we need to keep finding a way to overcome each obstacle. Next week's a really, really big test for us because Falkirk are a really good side.
Yeah.
If you look back at the last time we played Falkirk at their stadium, Russell Martin was secretly removed from the stadium with fans calling for his head. It's a tough, tough place to go, and you've seen it yesterday with their result against Motherwell. They handled Motherwell brilliantly. I watched the highlights last night. They pressed Motherwell really hard and earned a really good result. So, for me, it's not about momentum. It's just every game as it comes. I'll pose this to you though about momentum. Does Celtic playing in the Cup and Hearts and Rangers having a free weekend in 2 weeks' time, is that a good thing or a bad thing when we're talking about a training camp in Spain?
Well, so I think it's difficult because instantly the first thing you'll think about is our previous experiences of training camps. Jordan Jones, we're looking at you, etc., etc., etc. So all of that sort of stuff that goes alongside that. So I think there's a stigma that goes alongside training camps, and you could argue whether that's fair or not. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Would you like to be in the semi-finals for the Scottish Cup? Yeah, of course you would, because it's the possibility to get to win another trophy for the club, and we're close to the Scottish Cup. Scottish Cup's our trophy, and you would love to be in the mix to get to the final. For the manager, I think it would be a huge experience for him getting to Hampden and the opportunity to lead him out. But there's no doubt that we've went from being 13 points off the top to a single point now.
Yeah,
going to be 6 games to go, and you're slap bang in the middle of a title race. And listen, you're absolutely right. Everyone will fancy it. Everyone will fancy it. I think the 3 teams could all hang their hat on why they will be deserving and why they will be lifting that trophy mid-May. We just have to
on that, Scott. Like, what a season. Genuinely, for the neutrals, for the broadcasters, having the 3 teams going for it, it can go in any way. The relegation battle just now, you've got Livy almost down, but you've got teams at the bottom end that are all trying to avoid that playoff spot. You get St Johnstone probably running away with the championship now, with Thistle most likely coming second. There's stories happening all throughout the league right now in Scottish football. It's brilliant. And for us, and for many supporters, we've probably not been in a proper title race like this before. And it is, it's the cliche bingo of the twists and the turns and the squeaky bum time. There's going to be moments like, you quoted the stat earlier on of there's been no weekends where all 3 teams at the top have all won. What if Hearts and Celtic go and win on a Saturday, and then we go on a Sunday with that mentality of, well, nobody's done it. Yeah. You need to shut that stat up in your own time. We need to go into that game forgetting where we were in terms of where Danny Rule took us over from, and we need to just focus on the next game. And realistically, against Falkirk, having said everything I just said about Falkirk, our team should be good enough to go and beat Falkirk. So it's just about the old cliche of just keep focusing on your games. We need to remain calm, and hopefully somebody, maybe Miovski, turns into the Kyle Lafferty of the kind of run into the end of the season, where somebody just puts their head down and goes, I'm winning this league for this football club.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. You move into a period of time where there's a real opportunity for someone to stand up and be a hero. And I think, previously we've Kyle Lafferty was a prime example. Do you know what I mean? He would go for large periods of the season where he would go missing. He'd be getting sort of 10, 15 minutes off the bench. And when it got to this stage, he would become an absolute leader out there. And it comes back, we this Rangers squad have had things like mentality and attitude and desire all levelled at them at various different points. Quite deservedly, by the way, at some points just during this season and indeed on this show.
By me.
But I think they've got a real opportunity to ram it down our throats over the next 6 weeks. I would
love nothing more.
Yeah.
I'd love nothing more than the egg in my face, because I've questioned the mentality of this team and certain individuals in this group. I'd love nothing more than the end of the season to be celebrating with them.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking at some bits and pieces in the chat, and a lot of people are speaking about the split. We're obviously in a position now where I think the split fixtures, I imagine, would be released at some point this week, because I think both the sort of championship group and the relegation group are all pretty much clear now. I mean, we're going to go to Tynecastle, Celtic Park. I suspect it'll be Easter Road with home ties against Falkirk and Motherwell, Dukes.
Yeah, I wonder if the SFA will wait to see who's sitting top of the league before the split, so that they try and negotiate. But do you know the big factor that we were talking about in the car yesterday is the SFA won't want, or the SPFL won't want, a title decided at Celtic Park, for example. So they're going to try and navigate certain fixtures. You know, Hearts have got to play Rangers and Celtic. They've also got to play Hibs. So you won't want one of those games, or you might want one of those games to be a title decider. Imagine a first v second, last game of the season, winner takes all scenario. That would be absolute box office material and something we've never seen before in Scottish football. So I'd love it, right? But like what we were saying in the car was you'll probably have a fairly early derby weekend where Hibs and Hearts will play each other, Rangers and Celtic will play each other, get it out the way early so that Hearts can't win against Hibs or Rangers can't win at Celtic Park. We won't even talk about Celtic potentially winning a league. So I think the fixtures are going to be really interesting. As I said earlier on, of the remaining six, and particularly the post split with the five, we'll have 2 home games. The crowd need to bring it in those 2 home games, but the players need to bring it. You know, I can't emphasise this enough of how much it's just the next game. The players really need to show us that they are up for this fight. And I've said to a couple of pals today, I'm not overly confident in our players just because of the ups and downs. And you know, we've had that wee glimmers of hope where you could have went and played Celtic and really hammered it home against Celtic, and we didn't win. There's been moments, Livy, for example, where I've been let down by the players, and I probably feel a wee bit. You know, it's probably the PTSD of being let down over a period where I'm not getting carried away.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly confident, if I'm honest, my other mates. So keep reminding me, we have the best form. You know, when you think about it, over the last 5, 10, 15 games, we are the best team in the league at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter the other day, but there was like a first 8 games of the season and then where we're at now. And the form comparison between those 2 periods is absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
We should be winning this league. We have an excellent squad. Can question certain positions, but our squad is the strongest in the league. I've said that for a while. Our squad's the strongest in the league. We've got a good young manager. We've got all the right environment around about it. Touch wood, we've got our strongest team available mostly. You know, hopefully they'll all be back for Falkirk. Certainly post the trip to Spain. So you're kind of hoping that the momentum is with us, to use that word earlier on. It's then, you know, it's up to the players. Go and earn it. You know, it's not going to be handed to you. Go and earn it. And I'm here for it, Scott. I really am. This is what paying your money as a football fan's all about. It's this on your seat stuff. You know, I don't know about you, but seeing that 4th goal went in yesterday, how good was that feeling? How did the atmosphere sound? You seen the relief on guys like Nico Raskin on the pitch when that ball went in the net?
Do you know what? And I think because yesterday was good. I actually felt it was a decent game of football. It was a really decent game of football. I felt Jim Goodwin came and he'd organised the team really well. They had a good go at us. I actually thought it was quite an interesting, entertaining match. I enjoyed it. But yeah, to score the 4th gives you a bit of daylight. And you know, at that point, you're top of the league. And from that minute on, you're thinking, shit, I'm going to enjoy my Saturday night knowing that we're
time.
Yeah, 100%. Very aware that, do you know what I mean, there's 2 games that could completely change it all the following day. But at that minute, you're not caring. I mean, Cubby puts it absolutely perfectly for me. Keep believing. Final game might involve a helicopter. And of course, do you know what I mean? That last game, and everyone I see seems to think that final game of the season for Rangers will be a trip to Tynecastle.
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded it to your Dukes, the opportunity to get to the last game of the season to win the league would be pretty bonkers when you consider how the season started. Do you know what I mean? 0-0 Fir Park, Russell Martin throwing players under the bus post-match at that moment. Do you know what I mean? Just in the door. So I think to have the opportunity to get to where we are now, and I said this sort of yesterday, as I said when I spoke earlier, the opportunity to get to where we are now 6 games to go. 6 wins will do it. Now, of course, there's a visit to Celtic Park, which will be pivotal. It will be, but it'll be pivotal for both of us. Do you know what I mean? It'll be really important for both of us to win that game. And that game is so often in that sort of last 6 matches a bit of a headline, because either we've seen the sort of negative part of it where we've got a bit of doing, and that sort of, it's not been like that recently. There's a definite switch on, and you need to hope that we go there and give them a bit of a game. But we just need to do a bit.
We do. And you know, one of the stats that you said we'd already spoken about is the fact that not the 3 teams at the top of won the same weekend. The other stat, which I just find absolutely mental, is in the history of the SPL, no team has ever won all 5 post-split fixtures.
Is that right?
Mental stat.
Is that? I never realised that.
That's the twists and turns that we are facing. You know, you've got the top 3 constantly, one of them dropping points each weekend. Get into the post-split fixtures. Nobody's won them all yet in history. So there is a long way to go. And the message right now to everyone, supporters, and I'm as guilty as the next fan, right? But the message to everyone is, when we drop points, or if we drop points, don't give in. Keep with the team. Keep believing. No surrender.
Yeah. I think the important thing is that you I've referred to a lot of the times. I've referred to the journey that these players have put us on since Russell Martin to now, and it has been a journey, and it's been up and down, it's been left and right, it's been roundabout. But if you had said to me back then that we would have got to this stage and had this opportunity that we have right now with these players, it's something to really embrace with the players. It's something to sort of get right round them, support them, and make sure you can hear us as loud as you sensibly can, wherever that is. If that's Easter Road, Tynecastle, Celtic Park, Falkirk just round the corner for me, if it's at Ibrox, it's really important that we're there and we continue to support them in the best way we can.
If we can get into that final game of the season, Scott, with knowing that a win wins as a league, that's what we want right now. I'd bite your hands off for that right now. You know, I'd obviously love to win it earlier, but if we can be in that position that says, you know, final game of the season, win this game, you win the league, I'd bite your hand off for it right now, and I'd even post a league winners medal to Russell Martin.
I don't think I would go that far, to be honest with you, Douglas, but I appreciate the sentiment. Listen, it's always good having you on. I appreciate it's just you and I tonight, but I'm grateful for you coming on Easter Sunday and all that, so thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. And yeah, let's keep smiling. Let's hope that the Jers keep bringing the wins, and hopefully we can keep on coming on these podcasts, being happy and being optimistic about bringing a title back to Ibrox.
Absolutely. We should say thanks to our supporters for the season: Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Black Rooster, Art of Gold, and Candies. They are all helping us for the duration of the season. If you're watching, please like and subscribe. Follow us across all the obvious social media platforms: YouTube and Twitter. We're on Facebook. You can catch us on Instagram as well, at 4 Lads Have the Dream throughout all of these places. Have a look, follow us, and check out all the good things that we're doing there. Lots of content coming, as you can probably imagine. The duration of the week, the Monday trip is out tomorrow, and Rob assures me he's back from his holiday for next Sunday. He'll be standing in for me next Sunday, so please make sure to check him out next Sunday from sometime post 7:30. In the meantime, good luck to Rangers when they come about next weekend, and we will keep in touch, and fingers crossed for everything in our favour over the next 3-4 weeks. Bye for now. Good night.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.